Mount Fuji, the icon of Japan and one of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites, has always captivated me with its majestic beauty. Standing before it, one feels the grandeur and immense power of nature, and from the summit of every mountain, one's gaze stretches to distant horizons, inspiring both awe and tranquility simultaneously. Every time I saw a mountain while wandering the earth, I imagined myself at its peak. My love for mountains began around the age of 8 or 9, I can't recall precisely. It was when one of my relatives offered me, along with a child about my age, a trip to climb the mountains in the city of Saidia, Mount Sidi Marzouk. I didn't hesitate to go, especially since I was interested in nature and animals. My grandmother and I used to watch channels that focused on this field for hours, and my grandmother was passionate about animals. I felt as if she was a biologist at that time. At that time, I decided to become a biologist or a biological researcher, spending my life between plains, mountains, and jungles, between nature and experiments, so I enrolled in the biology department at the university. I imagined it would be as simple as I saw on TV, but I met someone and we exchanged a few words. He asked me which branch I chose. I told him that I chose the biology branch because I am interested in nature and animals. He sarcastically replied, "Do you think you will only study natural science subjects? You will also study physics, mathematics, and chemistry." I was a little surprised because even though I was good at natural science and chemistry subjects, I thought I had bid farewell to the nightmares of physics and mathematics after the baccalaureate, especially since I succeeded in the second year. This simple, spontaneous conversation was enough to change the topic of studying biology, although I continued to study several topics about the world of animals, especially birds of prey and big cats. So, blessed be the one who created them, insightful eyes that convey strength and courage from their gazes, unparalleled speed, intuition and focus, beautiful colors and shapes that delight the viewer. I wished I had continued down this path of knowledge, but fate had other plans. On the way to the mountains of Saidia, the journey seemed long for a young child. We exchanged conversations about animals and their ways of life, as if it were a cultural contest. As we approached the mountain, my passion and desire to climb it increased, as if it were a challenge that must be accepted. I was attracted to the mystery of what was beyond the mountaintop, as if I was a wren wanting to discover what was behind the walls. We began to climb, and for me, it felt as if I were walking on the surface, unconcerned about falling. We passed by a dry waterfall, with eagles hovering around the area. I watched one of the eagles attempting to catch a pigeon, when suddenly my foot slipped on the edge, and my companion grabbed my hand. In that moment, both my companion and I realized that this would be the first and last time I would go with him to climb the mountain. I also realized that extreme caution was necessary with every step near the edge. My companion felt responsible and advised me to stay away from the edge. The mountain was full of turtles that are no longer present now, as if they had become extinct, including spiders, lizards, and beneath the rocks were yellow scorpions. I did not feel afraid, as I had learned from watching TV how to remain calm and deal with these species. In general, if you don't harm these creatures, they won't harm you, although they may accidentally sting you if you approach their habitat without noticing them, as happened to me before when I was bitten by a spider accidentally. But I did not become Spider-Man. Rather, I almost became Deadman if I hadn't tied my arms with a piece of cloth and headed to the infirmary. It was an exciting journey full of adventures for a young child, and since then, I have been visiting that place every summer as if it were a summer pilgrimage. On one of the days, I spotted wild boars and sometimes snakes. I didn't know if they were poisonous or not, but I felt some fear, because if you were bitten, you might die there. Sometimes, I used to go with my friends for exploratory trips, carrying potatoes and fish, and preparing coffee. We felt as if we were a group of National Geographic explorers, delving into African savannas or Amazon jungles, and I worked as a tour guide for the area. I drove the road and led the group, feeling responsible towards them. As you may have read once, the leading wolf is usually the last of the group, and it is usually the elderly or sick wolves. And this to walk according to the rhythm of the group, and also to sacrifice them in case of danger, like being attacked by a bear or something. Unlike humans, the leader is always at the forefront. And this does not mean that I compare myself to a military leader on a reconnaissance or military mission, only a sense of responsibility, as we all felt some danger, from wild dogs and wild boars to the poisons of snakes and scorpions. This was the beginning of my love for mountains, and since then I have climbed many of them, such as Mount Seti Maafatha, Toubkal, Kilimanjaro, Fuji, and Nur, and Tor. Perhaps in the future, I will create videos or write about each mountain. Let's return to the story of climbing Mount Fuji, from the land of the setting sun to its rising. The journey began when I decided to visit this historic country, a great empire that sits atop the continent of Asia, taking you back in time to the era of the samurai, where courage and loyalty were the main characteristics of every man wearing armor and carrying a sword. Those were periods filled with challenges and conflicts, where fulfilling a promise was considered the greatest honor, and every knight sought to preserve his dignity and honor. Swords clashed in the sky, competing to display the strength and skill of their wielders. Moving into the era of technology, science, artificial intelligence, in addition to manga culture, anime, and video games. I had always dreamed of visiting this country, so I decided to visit it in the summer, when climbing season opens. Most of my time was spent inside arcades, manga stores, and electronic gadgets shops, those places where I spent more time than in school, as I immersed myself in arcades filled with mystical smoke that transported you to the time of Scheherazade and Shahryar, rhyme music and Western music, modified 20-cent coins, and quarrels and disputes that could arise from a hostile glance. The difference between them and the arcades in my country was their cleanliness, the noise of their machines, and the presence of people of all ages and nationalities. My favorite games were the legendary King of Fighters and Metal Slug. Like climbing any mountain, I didn't care much about the danger of the mountain or the equipment to take with me. I carried a small backpack with some food, water, Nike sneakers, and a leather jacket for protection from rain or wind. Every time I climbed a mountain, I didn't care about the difficulty, but rather tried to enjoy the natural scenery around the place, focusing on reaching its summit. I left the hotel and headed to the train station in Tokyo, which would take me to the bus departure point to the mountain. Unlike Osaka, where most people are sociable and noisy, the trains were quiet. Some people were sleeping, some were reading on their mobile phones, and others were holding newspapers. People in general were polite and respectful, and their facial expressions reflected interest. Contrary to Osaka, most of its residents avoid talking to foreigners, but the youth break this rule, as they help you, guide you on the way, and may even accompany you. Their faces were filled with kind looks and respect. Unlike Osaka, where most of its residents have a sociable and noisy nature in public transportation, and there's normal interaction between them and foreigners, without any obvious flattery. I reached the starting point of the climb and boarded a small bus with some mountain climbing enthusiasts to reach the 5th station, the starting point. Before climbing, I bought some food and water, visited temples and torii gates surrounding the area, and some shops selling souvenirs. I relied on God and started climbing after 4 p.m. The ground was slightly slippery and black due to the volcanic environment. To be honest, it was a mistake to climb in sneakers in an environment full of volcanic rocks. The climb was a bit difficult, but the scenery was beautiful, surrounded by dense vegetation and a sky where the sun was setting, with deep red mixing with orange, and the clouds shimmering in twisted shapes like a painting drawn by an Italian artist. The moment of sunset embodies tranquility, where everything seems to be in a state of calm and contemplation, and the sky with its attractive colors evokes a sense of wonder and amazement in the souls. I continued climbing all night long, encountering both Japanese and foreigners along the way. We exchanged glances and smiles, and some of them were curious enough to ask about my nationality. There were several stations for rest and refreshment, but I didn't stop much as all I desired was to reach the summit before sunrise. That prize awaited every daring climber or professional, to witness the sunrise over Mount Fuji, bestowing its golden rays upon the sacred mountain. The ascent was slow due to the large number of climbers of different ages, but most of them were Japanese. After long hours, I reached the summit, waiting for the sun's star to shine upon the earth and gift its golden rays to Mount Fuji. The sight was beautiful, overlooking the bustling city of Tokyo above the white floating clouds, defying the Earth's gravity. From the mountain peaks, everything looks different as you gaze downward, where tranquility, serenity, and breathtaking nature extend before you in all its beauty. You feel liberated from the constraints of daily life and its trivialities, as if soaring far away from the city's hustle, where you only hear the rustle of the winds and the voices of the Japanese. The same feeling as you stare from the plane, looking down with the look of Beerus or the Saiyans as they stare at planet Earth from space. You feel as if the world is peaceful, devoid of wars, disasters, or famines. I wished it were true, but we hope for peace on earth and harmony among all peoples of the world, for humans to enjoy a life free from conflicts and wars, to live in complete peace and harmony. I wandered around the place, carrying my country's flag proudly, a symbol representing my homeland, identity, and loyalty. Then I prepared to descend from the mountain, feeling the power and majesty of nature and the wisdom and grandeur of God in His creation. I bought a cup of milk coffee to awaken my senses, which were feeling tired and sleepy. Then I left this beautiful place. I wanted to shorten the journey and time by avoiding the main path, but each time I stumbled and hurt my hands on the small volcanic stones. It seems there was no escape from following the rules and returning to the main path, and that's what I did. On the way, the heat intensified, but time passed quickly, exchanging conversations with fellow travelers or climbers, and enjoying the manners and smiles of the children and exchanging peace greetings, konnichiwa, every time I met them. After a long distance, extreme fatigue, and boredom from talking and exchanging greetings, I found nothing better than using earphones to speed up the pace of descent. I played some French rap songs by PNL, La Fouine, Diams, Zaho, Soprano, and others, and tributes to Metal Gear Solid. To find myself shortly after in the 5th station. It was a climb in one day, a bullet climb, referring to the idea of climbing the mountain quickly without stopping in the mountain shelters. Mountain climbing is a beautiful hobby, meaningful, challenging, and adventurous for some. You feel as if you're Luffy on his way to find One Piece. For others, it's a needless fatigue. Human interests are diverse, which adds beauty to the world. There is a third category, those who are not mountain lovers and have no interest. Their only interest is to criticize what you do, like saying, "What's the point of that?" Or, "Why bother and exhaust yourself with climbing?" Or, even Capricorns climb mountains, as if mountain enthusiasts don't know that. But what they may not know is that even lions and leopards climb them. The answer to these questions is always, "You're right," as they don't understand someone's passion for something. And even if you climbed Mount Olympus, they would echo the same thing. Every person has his passion in life, so leave a good imprint in it. We will all leave, but we must always keep a dream in mind and work to achieve it, even if it takes a lot of time and effort. I hope you have benefited from this story and climbing journey, and that you continue to enjoy following new journeys and exciting explorations. Thank you for your time and interest.